Well, Bono, hey, season two, here we are. Okay, let me jump right into the question. It's going to be a great episode. So, God sits you down. He looks at you and he says, in order to get to the next level, it requires you be broken. You can choose. Do you choose to be physically broken? Your body will be broken and you will have to overcome it. Do you choose to be mentally broken? You will have a mental breakdown and you will have to overcome it. Or do you choose to be emotionally broken? You will have an emotional breakdown, your heart will be broken, and you will overcome it. You get in one of these three. You can decide, or I'm gonna decide for you. What do you choose?
I'm gonna go by process of elimination here. Um, I think from firsthand experience, I'm not choosing physical suffering or physical brokenness. Um,
Why?
I'm not choosing physical brokenness because it is when you are physically broke. Like I had a homeboy who got shot maybe about a year ago, and he got shot in the back, and where he got shot like affected his nerves somehow, and he can no longer walk. The amount of physical brokenness and suffering has tremendously shifted his life. Like I don't want to say ruined because he still is a fighter, and he's still doing what he needs to do. Um, but he wouldn't wish that kind of pain on nobody else. It changed his self-image of himself. And I know he's still kind of trying to wrestle with his new reality. It changed his relationships. It changed it changed everything, so that when you are physically broken to a degree that is unfathomable, like I think it just affects everything on such a profound level. um I think secondly, I would probably say I wouldn't want to be mentally broken, because when you're mentally broken, I mean, you're really on the brink of suicide. And there's not really a strong will to live. At least that's how I perceive it.
Yeah.
Emotionally broken, it's a dangerous place too. I think there's a lot of dangerous people in the world who've been emotionally broken, and they've done what they've done. But the worst of the three evils, I'm gonna have to go with emotionally broken.
To hop in, I'm also choosing emotionally broken. And maybe it's because I'm familiar with that. And I know us as humans, we
Ooh.
like to pick what's familiar to us. I know the steps to be emotionally broken. I know what can take me to being emotionally broken. That's with family and that's romantically. And sometimes even platonically with friends. I've have been emotionally broken in all three ways that I just mentioned. And I'm taking this route because even though I'm familiar with how to be emotionally broken, I still saw the blessing when I came out on the other side
Mm.
of being healed from being emotionally broken. The tough conversations that I can have now
Mm.
with people that I claim I love, that's priceless. It's almost now that I look at emotionally broken differently because I know if I'm experiencing being emotionally broken, that means I'm getting closer to an answer that I prayed for because I am now experiencing this again. And also, I want to pivot my answer as well, because to all the listeners, if you are in a season right now where you are in one of these, categories of being broken, I want you to know that breakdowns do not last forever. And once you get through these breakdowns many of times, whether in your story is one time or many times, after a while, you are able to declare whatever you need over your life because you have already been through those breakdowns. And breakdowns are no more, at least those type of breakdowns that you've already experienced. So to wrap this up, if you're listening and you find yourself within one of these breakdowns right now, just know once you get to that other side, once you get to that answered prayer, once you get to the end of that road, those breakdowns are no more. And you will be unstoppable emotionally, spiritually, in any other ways that you could think of?
Dopeness. Not even to play devil's advocate. I was thinking emotional at first, but I'm thinking mental, right? And I think it's strategic because I'm spoiled by dope relationships. I'm spoiled by a lot of great people. So I look at it where if I were to have a mental breakdown, I lose my mind, and I look at it as losing myself. I depend on this African proverb that says, a friend is someone who knows the song in your heart and can remind you when you have forgotten the words. So I look at it as, okay, Kamau, Zuri, Ashik, Sam, my mom, the bros, all these people would come into my life like, Tunji, remember who you are. And then I need my body because like working out is part of the thing that bring me peace. So when I need to shut my brain off, I can just go into that physical struggle, and that helps me. So I would say that mental challenge.
We hit
That
you with
mental challenge.
that Lion King, where he was like, "Remember who you are, Simba."
Yeah, no, real talk. That's one of my favorite African proverbs. That one is dope.
Yeah, I think one of the challenging things about being broken, I love what you said, Zuri, is how interconnected it is. But another thing that I said earlier on the live that I've really come to learn over time, especially I don't know, like living here in Mexico and seeing some of these older people, people who are in their 60s, their 70s, and their 80s, and they're like, it gets hot as like all get out during the summer. It is miserable. And these people, these older people, like they'll be drenched in sweat, they'll have their little walkers and like I just think to myself, I'm just like, I would hate to be that age and still dealing with all of these inconveniences, all of these uncomforts, but that's what makes them strong. That's why they're alive. That's why they're a strong people, because like they don't just choose comfort all the time, you know, uh,
Mm.
that and I feel like there's something to being challenged, to being broken, to being, downtrodden in life that makes living a little bit more purposeful. It's like that you've earned the right to be here. That is that you weren't just coddled and you didn't have any struggle, that you really earned the right at this lifetime.
And to hop in, I was listening to this interview with Pinky Cole. She has a new book, and it's called I Hope You Fail. And I want to take her verbiage and I want to put it into this segment, into this question. Because as I was answering that question, what I was really thinking, honestly, is kind of like her book title. I hope you become broken. I hope you become broken. I hope you experience brokenness. Because once you experience that, you start to look in the mirror a lot differently. You start to see that you actually are stronger than what you thought. You actually are made for more. You actually are worthy for more. Because it's really something about getting through a type of brokenness, getting through the darkest times in your life, and then you're able to stand a little taller, stand a little stronger, right? So I hope you get to brokenness. And I think with this question, you should be kind of asking yourself, why haven't I been broken down yet? If you haven't been broken down yet, maybe you're not in the right rooms. Maybe you're not in the right season. Maybe you're not praying for what you know you're worthy for. Because before you get to that milestone, everyone has to be broken in some way. It might not be in these three ways in the question, but everyone has to be broken down because only one person can build you back up. And you have to let God work his way and put you back like a puzzle. So please ask yourself as well, why haven't I been broken if you haven't been broken yet? And I hope you break.
Can I offer a suggestion, or not even a suggestion, but a reason for why you may not have been broken yet?
Yeah, what's that?
Because you're not living. You're not taking the risk of living, that you're playing life
Facts.
safe. And that's why you haven't been broken yet. To live, like to really go after it, I feel like you risk, and with risk comes failure, aka brokenness. So sometimes,
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
no. I was saying I agree. When you really look at your life, when you when you've made great strides.
Mm.
When you go from point A to point B, and point B is different than point A. It's not like, okay, it's not a mile down the road. Yo, I'm in a different state than what I was before. And not only in location, like who I am as a human being. You look yourself in the mirror and be like, nah, that ain't the same me. You were broken. Right? Because I think that's why like it works like that for God and us, period. Because you have an idea of what you think you're capable of. And then you're broken. You can't see yourself getting to the other side of it. There's something special about that where you kind of face a death of yourself. I have no idea how I get to the other side of this thing. And then when you're on the other side, all of a sudden you move in different. Right? All of a sudden you look at yourself differently. And to me, when I was writing this question, that's what it means to reach a new level. To have that experience of, okay, it's over with. I can't get to the other side, and then you're there now. And when I broke it down, it was always, for me, it's always been physical, mental, or emotional. And I wrap in that emotional with that spiritual piece.
And I want to hop back because Kamau, you said something profound, but I also want to sympathize with the listeners who just don't know why they're not broken or why they got raised in such an environment that they were coddled. They were blessed enough to be coddled. They were blessed enough to have everything given to them. And then you ask the question, or you answer the question and said, they're just not risking enough. And I want us to answer the question, all of us. And I just want to speak to the listeners who they want to risk. They want to step out and risk it. They want to move to Mexico and start a new life. They want to move even down the street just for a new life. But what if they weren't brought up that way? What if that's just not in them just yet? Where do they go to look for that, to be broken, to get to that next level?
That's a fantastic question. I definitely sympathize too with the people. It's a blessing not to have grown up and struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think as a hopeful parent, I don't want to put my kid through the same struggle that I had to go through. Like I don't want that to have to be the situation. And I didn't, like, I'm not even gonna sit here and preach to y'all like I just had a breakdown, like struggle childhood. Like my parents fought like hell to make sure shit was smooth. Things fell apart at a certain point and the family got broken. But like they fought like hell to make sure, that we didn't have to go through the same struggles that they went through or previous generations of our family went through. I feel like for me, risking is trying to listen to that little guide inside, that little voice inside that says, do this, try this, go this place, be with these people. Because you don't understand why it's telling you that. You can't make sense of it on the front end. It's almost a leap of faith in a way that's like, do I? Nah. And to me, to listen to that, even if you can listen to it a little bit, the times that I've listened to it, like it's to be honest, it's put me in a more uncomfortable situation. Like I've listened to it and I'm like, damn, like now I'm even more uncomfortable than I was before, but it's still kind of talking to me. And then I go a little bit further. I'm like, oh no, I can't fucking do this. And I just did the next step. It wasn't like I ran the whole marathon or the whole race. Like I just let the little voice guide me to the next step. And then I look back, I was like, I could turn back, and it's just that process of trying to listen and evaluate whether to proceed or whether to pivot.
I rock with that point you make, man, especially on the taking risks piece. Like for me, when I think about 20-year-old me, 19-year-old me,
Right.
freshman, sophomore at UGA, like just another young African kid on campus trying to figure it out. Right. And I found two things that really transformed my mind. One was this T.S. Eliot quote. He said, only those who risk going too far will ever truly realize how far one can go. And then Will Smith said kind of the same thing, that I hated the feeling of being afraid. Because like being a coward, his dad beat up his mom, right? And he was the older brother, but he didn't do anything for it about it. His younger brother did. His younger brother was the one that stood up to his dad. So his whole life he looked at himself as, weak. And I've had a moment like that, but so I looked at myself and I'm like, okay, I have to attack my fears. So whether it was hosting an event, I would host it. I'm like, oh man, I'm about to get roasted. I ain't no DC Young Fly, even though he didn't exist at the time. Like I'm not a comedian. But because I was scared, I went after it. And it kept leading to other opportunities. And one of the things I don't think I've ever shared on this, like why I became a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, was not brotherhood, was not hopping, was not on the other. I looked at this organization, and for the first time in my life, I looked at something and say, boy, I don't know if I'm cut like that. I want to, but I don't know if I can. And it was one of those things for the first time in life, nobody was forcing me to, where I said, or even suggesting it. It's just the way that people talk to this about these men. I was like, if I can do this, I'm the type of man I think I am. And it scared me. So when I got to the other side of it, I'm like, okay, I am the type of man I think I am. How far can I take this? What else is possible for me? And I'm telling you, there's been a lot of brokenness. When you start pushing those limits, you do fail. You do reach those points where it's like, bro, am I going to die? I have no more to give. And like Kamau said, you get up and you give one more. You take another step, you do another thing. And you do that enough days, you wake up and you on the other side of it. And then you're like, yo. And then that gives you so many. I think that's what's probably gave me the confidence to move out to LA and become a teacher and do all these other things. It was a domino effect of me really saying, okay, I'm scared of this. And that little voice says, but you should do it. And like, yeah.
And I trust myself. I trust myself. I've tried, I've failed, and I've trust myself. Somebody told me once, like, I think when it came to asking girls, like trying to, get a girl's number or something, somebody's like, the worst, what's the worst things you could say? And I was like, I don't know. No, the worst thing she could say is no.
Nah, the worst thing she could be like, that's significantly worse.
She could definitely go out and embarrass you, but depending on your approach, the worst thing she could say is no, and I feel like, okay, once you're able to grasp with the worst thing that could happen here, I think like you do it, then you start to develop that trust. And let me fucking tell you how important trust in yourself is. Like, to develop that trust in yourself is the freedom to live for the rest of your life. Because there will be times where you are challenged. There will be times where you're supposed to move forward and you have every reason not to. But if you trust yourself, if you have developed that relationship with yourself that you want to do something, we can do it. We, as in this unit, like if we put our mind to it, we can do it.
And what's so wild is you said trust yourself. The word confidence comes from the root word confidere, which means trust in oneself. And the best way I've ever put it is like somebody who is confident, somebody who keeps their word to themselves. I say I'm going to do it and I do it. Like succeed or fail. That little voice that says, okay, and something simple. All right, I'm gonna eat good today. Or I'm gonna eat good. I'm not eating this today. Right? I'm not having that ice cream at the end of the day, no matter how bad my day is. And then your day is bad, and that ice cream coloring you like, hey, butter pecan. Like put that pecan ice cream pie in the microwave to get it a little bit hot, and then just scoop that thing on top of it, even though you told yourself you wouldn't do it. So that trusting yourself starts with those little things, and that trusting yourself literally becomes confidence. And then you start walking into rooms where it's like, it's not about everybody else. Like you said, I've built a relationship with this person.
Yeah.
That little voice in my head, I don't ignore it anymore. We have a conversation. And I think that's a powerful growth step.
And Zuri, I know
I think confidence is also learning when to ignore that little voice.
Talk.
There were a lot of times
Talk.
when I
Talk.
always listened to the little voice in my head, thinking that I knew what was best for me, right? And that's another thing of
that.
And that's another thing of learning how to discern and to take your discernment to another level, to distinguish between those voices of if you should move forward, if you should pivot, if you should move out the country, if you should move back home, right? It's listening to those voices and being confident, knowing that like, this is the decision and I'm going to stand on business and I'm going to stand here and I'm going to move forward. But it's also confidence to know when you're like, that voice sounds too familiar to when that took me to my brokenness. That voice sounds a little too familiar when it took me to my heartbreak. And you have to be confident enough to walk away from that voice. But that also comes with experience. And that also comes with taking risk to be broken in the first place. Because you can't know which voice is leading you to the brokenness unless you've experienced that, unless you've taken those risks to begin with.
And I'll challenge you because I think sometimes that voice leads us to the brokenness because we need to be broken. Right? So I look at it like this. Let's say, okay, I'm really interested in this girl, but I have my parameters. I know what I'm looking for. And then I have a conversation with her. And then the conversation is great. She's dope, but she's looking for something different. And I start to change who I am to fit what she's looking for. Now I'm getting broken in a way I wasn't supposed to, right? The brokenness should have been me saying like, nah, this ain't gonna work. You know, I'm not in that place and walking away. But instead the brokenness is me trying to fit into this box because, oh yeah. And then I really get spanked by life. So I feel like there's ways we can be broken that we're supposed to, but then we be doubling it down, tripling down, do what we're not supposed to. You get broken in a whole different way.
You said a word right there with that one.
But that's still building that confidence to know which voice to listen to next time, you know? But you took that risk to begin with. Kamau, it seems you were about to hop in
Can you hear
me?
Ago. Yeah. No, I was just saying that, like you said a word with that one, because what it took me to is the death by 1,000 cuts. When you get yourself in that situation, and it's just like you start to mold who you are, you start to shift, you start to be inauthentic, and that's when you start dying.
There it is.
You start dying, you know, and that character, that person that you're supposed to be trusting, yourself, starts dying because you're not being authentic. You know, I feel like for me, for me, when I experience that the most, I've experienced with the girl too, where I start like trying to shape shift and be somebody I'm not. It usually doesn't work for me because I'm like, I just can't be somebody I'm not. Like I've tried, but that shit just doesn't work for me. But what happens more times for me is like when I find myself in a situation, it's like you've been here too long. It's time to move forward. Yeah, and I fight moving forward. I fight it. I'm like, but there's no reason. Like, why do I gotta move forward? Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's for me. And I feel like the more you grow in life, the harder it actually becomes to move, to keep moving, to keep proceeding.
Facts.
Because I think like we kind of, once you get out of that survival mode, then you kind of hunker down, you know, and you start to lose touch with your purpose because you stay where you're not supposed to, and you know you're supposed to keep moving.
It's all good is the enemy of great, and that's the game. Good is the enemy of great. And something you said that's so profound, Zuri, is when you're trying to figure out which voice to listen to.
Yeah.
Is in that brokenness, I think about like, especially like with relationships, there's a fine line between molding who I am and being somebody different and refusing to grow. Right? Like I think about little things where I can take better care of my hygiene. I can be more responsible. I can take more accountability for things around the house, all these other things. And I say, oh, that's not who I am. Just because you weren't raised to do those type of things. But those type of things matter. How I treat somebody else matters. And this is a fine line between saying, okay, who am I? And what are these traits that I can develop in a relationship dynamic? And I found that those traits in a relationship dynamic, when I got them right, they translated to work. They translated to a paying attention to detail. And if I would have said, that's not who I am, and stood on a lower version of myself, ooh, I never would have become a better entrepreneur, a better business person, a better leader, a better listener. If I would have like that pride. So it's a hard balancing act. And I don't even know if I have it figured out. There may be some places where I'm standing on something, like we talked about in the live, where I'm like, nah, I ignore all that and just focus on that. I don't know if I'm right. Right now, I know it's effective. Right now, I know it's getting me where I want to go. But figuring out that balance, that's a process. I think that's a process we all have to like pivot and proceed and figure out on our own.
To your point, Kamau, about you always asking yourself if you have to move forward, I'm the complete opposite. I love leaving, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a state, city, it doesn't matter. I'm a leaver and I stand on that. Because you have to know, you have to know when to leave things, or you will become complacent. Now, there's an opposite side to that, where you might leave a place or someone too early before you get your lesson, before you get your blessing.
Facts.
Yeah.
And those are those two voices in my head battling. I mean, they be battling. And I don't know where I picked that up, but I love leaving. And I right now in this season, I am making sure that I am intentional with my leaving, no matter what it is, because that's who I am, right? So I'm not going to neglect who I am, but I'm going to find purpose in leaving. I'm going to find purpose and know when I need to leave, and really stand down and understand that voice and that soft voice that I get when I know it's time to leave something. I have to start believing it the first time. And that's another thing. You have to believe it the first time. Because when you leave whatever situation, it could be a job, a relationship, that next thing that's waiting on you is so much bigger. You thought that last thing was bigger, right? But once you leave, it's so many doors that open up for you. But depending on if you're like Kamau and you struggle with moving forward, or if you're like me and you're like, I just love leaving. It's a small voice regardless, but you have to become confident in which voice to listen to.
So Zuri, tell me this: do you have a difference between like leaving and running? How do you designate like, okay, I'm leaving versus I'm quitting or I'm running out? Because you said leaving and something's better with a smile on your face. Like, do you leave when things are good? Is that a thing, or do you always leave when things are bad? Is there a difference for you?
So to answer the first question,
the
difference between leaving and running, I know the difference only because I came from a situation in my brokenness emotionally when I was younger, that I ran from my trauma. I ran from the type of environment that I was brought up in, right? And that's when I ran. So I learned early on what running felt like. I don't think it through. I just go when I run, because I'm scared. I have anxiety. I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I don't want to have the tough conversations. I just want to run, to forget about it, for it to be in my rearview mirror. When I leave, it's intentional. When I leave, I've sat with the thought of why I need to leave. And I've gotten a vision from God of what my better and what my forward looks like. So when I leave, I have a vision that I've seen. I feel it in my gut. I feel it in my heart that it's time to leave. And I also lean on how God talks to me, which God talks to all of us differently. And the way that God talks to me, if I get that answer in that way, it's time to leave. If I don't, and if I make my own decision, and if I lean on what I want to do and what makes me feel good, then I'm running. But see, again, to wrap this up, when I was younger, I was only going off on feelings because I was a kid, right? I ran to Florida and I stayed there. I ran a lot of places and I stayed there because it felt good at the time. But see, even running turns into purpose if you do it right. even when you run, it turns you into someone who you were always meant to be, because you have to run before you leave sometimes to understand really who you are and to understand your personalized mirror that you're holding up to the world.
I don't know if I would make this general, like, for everybody. This is not a blanket statement, but I, in the relationships that I have, I feel like I do see more women who are more, when it comes to fight or flight, I see more women on the flight, and I see a lot of men on the fight. And again, that's just for my relationships. I'm not speaking for everybody. But I feel like for me, the fight side, to me, like, I find myself fighting sometimes when it's like I don't need to fight, like I do need to flight. It's really not even about flighting, because flighting to me is equivalent with running. I really like what you said about leaving. Like, it's a different energy. There's more intention behind it. I think my automatic response is to fight. It's to fight for something. It's to fight for something I believe in. It's to dig my heels in the ground and being like, no, I believe in this. Like, I'm a push, but sometimes I find myself pushing against the will of God.
Ooh.
I'm on the other side. I'm on the other side of the bull, and I'm like, hey, yo, like, this isn't who I thought I was wrestling with, and it's knowing when, like, okay, throwing the towel in doesn't mean like I'm quitting. And I felt that was a lesson I learned early, probably my first endeavor, like with the weed thing, like going out pursuing entrepreneurship in cannabis. And I was pretty much down. Like, I was not far from being homeless. I was not far from being homeless. And 19 years old, that's pretty early to be homeless, and we're talking about LA, and how LA homeless is it's a homeless. Like, you're really out in them streets for real. And I wasn't far from that, and I had to recognize that, like, I wasn't, but the other thing is, I wasn't scared of that either. I embraced that. I was like, fuck it. If this is what success takes, fuck it. Run it. Like, I just had that fight in me that I was just like, I'm going to fight for the dreams I believed in. But I did pivot, because I just felt like there was other things that were calling to me, more personal things, more family things that I felt a sense of responsibility for, to pivot on behalf of. And I feel like it's still a lesson 10 years later that I'm trying to learn, it's like, when is it time to pivot? When is it time not to try to fight the uphill battle?
And when you think about the fight or flight, the question that always comes to my mind if I'm trying to fight, something, it's like, the question is, what am I even fighting for? And if that question doesn't excite me, if it doesn't lead me closer to a vision that I've had or goals for myself, I feel that's the time when it's time to kind of say, like, okay, I'm leaning more towards, that flight. So it's like, if there's any listener listening, like, to what we were just saying, sometimes you got to ask yourself that, and it might not even be an answer, and you might not even know what you're fighting for. And I think that's a bigger issue as well, right? Because you can't take risk with, fighting for a relationship or fighting for your place at a job, whatever it might be, if you don't have a bigger why of why you're even fighting for this. Then you're just fighting just in the shadows. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting the mirror, right? You're fighting your traumas all by yourself. So you have to have that bigger reason of why you're fighting.
And I think that's a powerful segue into Glows and Grows, especially when I think about wrapping up season 2. It's like, why am I fighting? To ask yourself that as a listener, and to help you keep moving forward, because we're not leaving, we're not running, we're still here. And when I think about why am I fighting, why are we doing this? Because as I win, everybody wins. Like Zuri with Gentry spot, why is she fighting? Why does that fight, it means something? And as that grow, that moves forward. Kamau with Revolution of One, and with being program manager extraordinaire, right? And then being an entrepreneur, and me with Rhyme, Holistic Health Company, like, all these individual journeys combined to make Pivot and Proceed. And like, why do we keep doing this? Why are we fighting? Because as we win, you win. As we elevate individually, we elevate collectively. And just these stories that we're sharing, it makes sense for us to fight. And I don't know, as we move forward into Glows and Grows, I just challenge the listeners to join the community and add your stories. Like, to add, what are you fighting for as we move forward? What are you fighting for? And that idea of when you win, we all win. And I think that goes right into my glow. The fact that Pivot and Proceed, this community is something to fight for, because when I win, we win. And when you win, we win. And it's just a blessing to be a part of and to put in work for. And I feel like that grow is the off season. I'm feeling a lot like J. Cole. I feel like we're gonna go into this off season. We got a few drops that we want to bring out, a lot of things we want to grow on, we want to develop, like angles we want to take. And I think I'm with Zuri in this moment where the grow isn't even a negative thing. Usually my grow is Tunji tighten up. My grow is this time, it's, low-key excited of what will come of the work. Usually I'm a process guy, but I'm excited about the product. I'm excited about the holiday episodes, the things that we're going to drop, the things that the listeners will get to see. And then when the new season drops, it's like, oh no, it's different now. It smell like victory in here. Like that's my grow. The work that will produce an even better product. And my soundtrack, go ahead and put this on repeat. Oldie but a goodie at this point. Nipsey Hussle and Motivate. Off the Victory Lap album. That's all I'm trying to do. Hustle and motivate. And that's me.
My grow for this week. I need to grow in the area of not touching something that I've already given over to God.
Oh, hey, relax.
Where did that come from?
Jesus Christ. Come on. Good night.
I need to grow badly in that area, because I had something I did this past weekend where I had the choice to touch something from my past again. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to give it over to God. This is not my battle. This is not my decision. And I was having a little too much fun one day on this weekend. And I decided to reach back in my and to look back in my rearview mirror on something that I had already given over to God to really help me with that decision. And it pissed me off when I realized that I actually went forward with something that I trust God with to take care of. Either way, I'm cool with it. But I still chose to look back at my rearview mirror. And when I realized what I did, I was fuming, because that is something that I already looked at, something that I needed to grow in. But then also found a blessing in me being pissed, where we have to have grace with ourselves. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. 20-somethings, we're going to make all of those mistakes, right? But that's my grow, to not touch something that I had already given over to God. My glow, man, my glow is just standing in answered prayers. There are a lot of things going into 2023 that I really wanted to just do and have momentum with. And I did everything that I wanted to have momentum with. And if you listen to the other episodes, I've talked about really all of them. But to not be long-winded, man, that's my glow. I said it, I did it, and I have momentum in what I wanted to have momentum in again. And that's just a testament that when you listen to that voice and you have confidence in that voice, as we were speaking on earlier, you'll get a little step closer to what you know is meant for you. My soundtrack for this week is Cleo Soul. She dropped a new album, and that album is therapy with a beat behind it. It is amazing. It is an album that you listen to if you're struggling with self-worth, or if you have all the confidence in the world, and it just reassures that you have confidence. It's just amazing. Again, it's therapy with a beat behind it. So Cleo Soul is my soundtrack.
My glow. Well, I mean, really just to build off, because I wanted to say something else about how we transition before we hit glows and grows. What were we talking about?
Running, leaving.
The fight or flight. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Oh,
Oh.
it was, what are you fighting for? Why are you
Yeah.
fighting? That's what it
Yeah.
was. And I wanted to say something about that because I feel like my grow is, who are you fighting for? I talk about this a lot with Revolution One. We talked about this when we did that podcast, Tunji.
Yeah.
Your energy can be used and you end up fighting other people's fights. Like, if you're not intentional and aware of your energy, that raw emotion, that desire to fight, you know, that can be used to fight other people's fights. Whole civilizations have been built on people's energy to fight, but they're just not fighting their fight. They're fighting somebody else's fight, somebody else's cause.
Facts.
My grow is to be not only hyper vigilant about whose fight am I fighting, but make informed decisions with that information. That's my grow. My glow is, tomorrow I'm going to Cuba.
Hey.
Hey, boy. Hey.
Let's go.
I'm pretty excited about that, honestly. To see the fusion of Afro, Latino, like that's gonna be, it's gonna be really unique. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited also that we're approaching the holidays, that the weather is getting colder, that things are changing. For me, this is reflection time. I love me some holidays. I love the end of the year because this is the reset button. You know, this is where you get to really kind of look at and take stock of what were the intentions. And 100% honest, I didn't come into 2023 really intended. I wasn't intentional about everything. And so, or not as intentional as I was in previous years. So I'm excited about the new opportunity. I'm excited to really take stock and to sit with myself and to do a lot of journaling. I'm excited for 2024 from a numerology perspective. It has Kobe written all over it. Obviously, you got the 24 in the end. If you add all the numbers together, you get 8. The first number is 2, and I think about Gianna. So it, to me, just the whole year has Kobe written all up and down that thing. And that's really exciting for me. From a fan, from, you know, just like an admirer of excellence in his work. So I'm excited for what this is, and I think it gives me enough time. You know, we're recording this in October. It's probably going to drop in October as well. And so, you know, for me, for you as the listener, we got time. We got time to really get in our bag, and to take this recuperation season seriously. So that's the glow. That's the grow. The soundtrack is off of Drake's album. You know, I'm a kind of a Drake stan. Like, I try to fight it for a lot of years. You know, but you know, we here. I rep the 6. Away from home. Hey, man,
the 6 is wild.
I've never even been to Toronto.
It is, though.
Somebody I've never been.
I've never been to Toronto. I've never been to Canada, but you know, I'll rep the 6, man. Chubbs, all the guys, man. You know what I'm saying? But for all the dogs, away from home, I don't know. It's a banger. I love me a good song that's kind of like let them know that I remember. Like, maybe y'all forgot, maybe other people forgot, but I remember the journey that I went on, and I remember all the people who had stuff to say about me, who had encouraging words for me, who gave me the favors, who did not. I remember it all. And it keeps me motivated. So that take away from home, and I feel that too, like, just always being on the road, being away from home. So that's me.
And that being said, speak of remember, We remember Seattle, we see you. New York, we see you. Everywhere we got listeners that we've seen, yo, we appreciate you. We love you. We can't wait to grow for you. We can't wait to grow with you. Oh, it's a blessing. It really is. A few CTAs where we close out. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere you get podcasts. Because like I said, we dropping some heat this holiday season. And also hit that bell so you can be notified when it actually drops. Because we're going to go a lot of more back and forth. We want to turn it into a conversation, really turn this into a community. So leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're listening on at this moment. But you can also hit the link in our bio, and that'll give you a specific Spotify survey on this season and this episode. As we go through it, as we grow, follow us on IG. We're going to be dropping a lot more, and we're grateful for you. As always, if no one's told you today, if no one has told you this week, no one's told you the last 5 minutes, you've been listening, so I doubt they have. You are loved by us. We appreciate you, and we can't wait till you hear us again, and we hear from you. May every pivot you have be followed by a proceed. It's love.
It is love. I wanted to give some love myself, some personal love. Just like very grateful for every single person who tuned in this season. Very grateful for every single guest who came on this season. Very grateful for my two co-hosts for listening to me yap about my criticisms on how we can improve the show. But you know, again, eternally grateful for you for listening. You know, this is a vision, a dream. I think that the three of us share, you know, that we deserve, that we belong on the charts. We belong up there on the stages. We feel like we're one of them ones, and we're very committed to serving the people who listen to us, to helping you on your journey get to be one of them ones too. So just wanted to give a thank you from myself. Look forward to what's to come. Like it's gonna come.
And before we close out this episode, to end this episode on this note, Kamau, you said something that I have to go back to close out this episode, because you said sometimes you will fight other people's battles and you're not even fighting for yourself. I want our listeners to know as well that sometimes you can fight someone else's trauma and you not even knowing that. You could be helping them fight their own trauma when that's their job. That's not your job. So as we close out this episode, I just had to put that in there because I want our listeners to know that you are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy to fight your own battles and not carry someone else's battle on your shoulders.
Come on now.
And I just wanted to say thank you all for also listening to this episode, and second to both of what my co-host said.
Hey, it's love. You heard Zuri. Do your job, not their job. It's not your job. Hey, we love y'all. Till next time.
Peace.